It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has affirmed during an interview with the national media that almost all of his 54 commitments made to the Algerian people before his election had been implemented, pending the fulfillment of the remaining commitments. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed his condolences to the President of the Republic following the forest fires that claimed several lives in Algeria. And in Niger, uncertainty remained on whether the Economic Community for West African States, ECOWAS, would recourse to force hours before the expiry of an ultimatum given 1 week to the new authorities to restore constitutional order in the country. And those were the major developments. Now, the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has affirmed that almost all of his commitments had been implemented, indicating that he has succeeded in strengthening the state's sovereignty to defend the interests of the citizen as part of the new Algeria. More details with Mohamed Khatel.
During an interview with the national media, President Tebboune assured that about 75% of his 54 commitments made to the Algerian people before his election had been implemented, pending the fulfillment of the remaining commitments. He reaffirmed his commitment to defending the middle class, which he described as the country's stabilizing bar, which the state was working to satisfy. A middle class as the pillar of the society which had suffered a lot of terrorism and economic crises.
أنا الشغل الشاغل نتاعي من أيام الأولى اللي شاركت في أول حكومة وندافع عن الطبقة الوسطى. الطبقة الوسطى النهار اللي فقدناها فقدنا التوازنات تاع الجزائر. النهار اللي فقدنا الطبقة الوسطى ضربها الإرهاب، ضربها الأزمة الاقتصادية، فقدنا التوازن ولات السيارات تلعب. لابار ستابيليزاتريس راحت. ومن ذاك الوقت وانا شخصيا مناضل تاع الطبقه الوسطى بغض النظر ماهوش قضيه انتخابيه ولا سياسويه ولا لان هي الركيزه تاع البلاد الاقليات تبقى اقليات ولكن الاغلبيه هي الطبقه الوسطى.
With regard to salaries, the head of state recalled his commitment to reach 47% of salary increase by 2024 as decided in 2020 with the exemption of taxes on low wages and the increase of index points and retirement pensions.
انا التزمت بلسنه 2024 لازم نكون وصلت الى معدل تاع 47% رفع اجور ترفع تكون ترفعت بنسبه 47%. بديناها في 2021 باعفاء كل الناس اللي تقاضوا 30,000 دينار وما اقل من ضرائب، نوع من رفع الاجور ب 20% 15-20%. زدنا اضافات اخرى، زدنا في النقطه الاستدلاليه، زدنا رفعنا في التقاعد، في منح التقاعد الى اخره، ونزيد حتى نوصل 47-50% يصبح من 2021 لنهايه 2024 نكون اللي كان يخلص نقولوا 5 ملايين واللي يخلص 7 ملايين ونص.
Meanwhile, highlighting the many measures taken to put out the fires that hit some provinces, which allowed to reduce the number of victims, as well as the time taken to extinguish all fires compared to the tragic ordeals that Algeria experienced in the past. He recalled that Algeria had acquired 6 firefighting planes, out of which one gigantic plane was received to date, noting that it had also chartered 6 other firefighting planes.
شرينا طائرة ما بين 6 طائرات اللي كنا ننتظر اقتناعها واللي كلفنا بها الجيش الوطني الشعبي. استلمنا طائرة كبرى كبيرة عملاقة بالنسبة للإطفاء، وشفنا مع دولة تشيلي لأن كذلك حتى الكراء ما لقيناش. كرينا 6 طائرات أخرى وكانت موجودة في قبل ما تندلع الحرائق، بالإضافة إلى تقوية العتاد نتاع الحماية المدنية وإعادة النظر في التنظيم اللي كان موجود.
Evoking the housing file, the head of state assured that the construction projects will continue, stressing that housing is a social philosophy in Algeria and we have to deal with it as such. He also affirmed that houses will remain a priority for the state, which will grant them to those who really need them.
شوف الصيغة ما نشوفش إلا الجانب المالي. ما نقول لك السكن، اللي يبغي يتطرق للسكن في الجزائر، سكن هي فلسفة مجتمعية. هي تخلي المواطن في القصدير وفي البناء الهش وفي بناء كذا، ومواطن آخر عنده الحظ باش يبني ويطلع دار ولا يبني فيلا ولا يبني عمارة هذه دوز الجيري كي سو فريكونت الفينيرون بار سافرونتي. اذا مشكل مجتمعي لازم نتحملوه سي فيلوزوفي سوسيال لا دو كوتي ماتيريال تاعها ولا دو كوتي ماتيريال الامور ماشي تقلص.
As for the ongoing projects in the field of hydraulics, President Tebboune underlined that seawater desalination plants are able to ensure a regular supply of drinking water on account of the long coastal line that Algeria enjoys, ensuring in this connection that the supply of drinking water is on the top of their priorities of the public authorities. He pointed out that Algeria has occupied in a short time the first place in Africa and the third in the Arab world after Saudi Arabia and the UAE in terms of seawater desalination, while affirming that the desalination plants under construction in 5 provinces will produce 1.4 billion cubic meters, the objective being to increase the production capacity to 2.5 billion cubic meters of desalinated water to put an end to water stress.
إذا ما فيش حل آخر من غير تحلية مياه البحر. تحلية مياه البحر عندنا 1200 كيلومتر تاع شواطئ، يعني قادرين تقريبا كل قرية نديروا لها المحطة نتاعها تحت تحلية المياه، وهذا على أساس اللي في ظرف قصير وصلنا احنا البلد الثالث في العالم العربي. احنا البلد الأول في إفريقيا، البلد الثالث في العالم العربي بعد العربية السعودية وبعد الإمارات. ولما ننتهي بالمحطات هذه تاع 300 ألف متر مكعب نراها في الإنجاز، اللي واحدة وضعت الحاجات الأساسية لها في فوكا وواحدة في كابجينات، نوصل إلى 1,400 مليون متر مكعب، ونزيد لما نوصل مليارين ونص و500 مليون متر مكعب انتهينا مع مشكل الجفاف إن شاء الله.
The head of state also deemed the strengthening of rail transport as the best guarantor of development in the country, particularly for the southern regions, which will instill national unity and territorial integrity and allow investments to go further in the south of the country. He added that Algeria will launch a program with Chinese partners for the construction of railways stretching over 6,000 kilometers.
الشركة الوطنية تاعنا اللي وضع السكة الحديدية راها بدأت تشتغل كما يلزم، هذا على هذا الأساس اللي اتصلنا بأصدقائنا الصينيين باش ندخل في برنامج طموح أكبر من هذا. أولا السكة الحديدية أنا التزمت بها، ترسخ الوحدة الوطنية، ترسخ الوحدة الترابية، تسمح لنا باش ندخل بالاستثمار في أعماق الجزائر. لما السكة تمشي من الجزائر طمر راست في الطريق نتاعها توجد استغلال المناجم واستغلال كذا والتجارة وهذه، وتخلق حيوية أخرى وتزيد تفيد المواطن بالنسبة لهذا. لما تمشي السكة توصل الأضرار، اليوم باش توصل الأضرار واش باقي؟ السكة راها في بشار، ما بين بشار والأضرار 600 كيلومتر. 600 كيلومتر سي با لا فان دي موند. تصبح لأول مرة في تاريخ الجزائر، حتى في التاريخ المعاصر كاع منذ قرون، أول مرة اللي السكة تجي من الجنوب الأضرار توات حتى العاصمة حتى الوهرة.
Meanwhile, President Tebboune thanked all the investors who weren't involved in corruption practices, adding that the country has achieved substantial progress in a very short period of time in terms of non-hydrocarbon exports, which reached $13 billion. He also underlined that investment is wide open in light of the new investment law put forth by the state.
أنا شاكر كل الشكر المستثمرين الجدد وحتى القدم اللي ما كانوش داخلين في الفساد وما كانوش داخلين في كذا. اليوم وصلنا الاقتصاديين يعتبروها معجزة. عمرك منذ 35 سنة 40 سنة عمرك ولا تجاوزت ملياري دولار تصدير خارج المحروقات. فجأة في سنة ونص نوصل إلى 7، واليوم نوصل إلى 13 مليار. هي كيك شوز كي شونج سي جلال. في حاجة باش توصل 13 مليار. 13 مليار هذه بعض الدول دور في 12 11 مليار، هذه 30 40 سنه ماهوش سهل. معناه باللي فيه ناس راح تستثمر، معناه فيه انتاج جيد، معناه فيه انتاج راح يتصدر الى اخره. اذا مش من اجل المنع الاستثمار ولا كذا. الاستثمار فتحناه، قانون الاستثمار مفتوح على مصراعيه. تبغي تستثمر باموالك الخاصه تفضل، تبغي تستثمر بالمال تاع الدوله فيه شروط. هذا هو شروط اللي تخلي الاقتصاد يمشي هاك ولا هاك.
In another context, the head of state stressed that China, Russia, South Africa and Brazil were in favor of Algeria joining the BRICS group, adding that the current president of the bloc stated that Algeria's adhesion is a necessity as Algeria constitutes a gate to Africa and other organizations such as the Non-Aligned Movement.
ما اتفقوش لحد الآن على المقاييس نتاع القبول ولا رفض أي دولة من الدول، ولكن احنا الشيء اللي مشجعنا أن الفاعلين في هذا الصين، روسيا، جنوب أفريقيا، حتى البرازيل. ديلما رئيسة السابقة تاع البرازيل اللي هي رئيسة البنك الحالي قالت الجزائر ضرورية للبريكس، لأن الجزائر منفذ لشيماء ماهيش غير وحدها، بوابة لعدم الانحياز وعدم كذا. ثانيا إذا كان تفاهموا على الأغلبية راه عندنا يتفقوا قال ما نقبلوا حتى واحد شغلهم شنو نفرض شنو فينا على البريكس. ما هي العمل يقدمه هنا البريكس ولا الشيء اللي يقدموه البريكس؟ البريكس هو قطب جديد في النشأة نتاعو، قطب اقتصادي أولا ممكن يأخذ صبغة سياسية كذلك، وإحنا والصينيين ناضلنا كثير في هذا الاتجاه على أساس نخلق أقطاب العالم أحادي القطبية، هذا خرجوا منه خلاص نهائيا.
Regarding the planned state visit to France, President Tebboune affirmed that his visit has not been cancelled and that the visit's program has still not emanated from the French presidency. He indicated that his state visit must culminate in tangible results and should not be a simple tourist visit.
هي قائمة ما تلغتش ولكن لحد الآن احنا ننتظر في البرنامج تاع الزيارة من طرف الرئاسة الفرنسية. زيارة الدولة لها متطلبات، وزيارة الدولة لازم تخرج بنتائج. زيارة الدولة ما تكونش زيارة سياحية، هذا هو الكلام اللي كنا فيه. ما زالت قائمة لما نتفق على برنامج اللي يجسد زيارة دولة نمشي، ما فيش، ما عندناش أمور مبدئية اللي قال ما نمشي ولا ما نمشي. اللي راه يحلل من بعيد الله يخليه يحلل.
Evoking the current crisis besetting neighboring Niger, the President of the Republic affirmed that the situation there threatens directly the security of Algeria and the whole region, reiterating Algeria's total and categorical rejection of any military intervention which never solved any problem, as it was the case in Libya and Syria. He also warned against any escalation in the Sahel region.
بالطبع تهديد مباشر للجزائر، احنا رافضين رفض تام وقطعي بالنسبة للتدخل العسكري. الناس اللي عاقلين، الناس اللي يشوف الدول اللي دخلتوا فيها عسكريا وراها اليوم، ما زال مشاكل مطروحة فيها، ما زال دول متشعبة، ما دام كذا، ما زال. شوف ليبيا، شوف سوريا، التدخل العسكري ما يحل حتى مشكل. التدخل العسكري بالأخص اليوم تأزمت الأمور فيه انضمام دولتين مجاورتين للنيجر باش تدخل في المعركة، ومن بعد شعلوا كاع الساحل، الأمور تتحل بالمنطق.
As to the Israeli government's recognition of Morocco's alleged sovereignty over Western Sahara, President Tebboune said he considered it null and void and a non-event.
14 hours 43 minutes Algiers time. We're still listening to Radio Algeria International. And the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, Supreme Chief of the Armed Forces and Minister of the National Defense, has presided over a celebration ceremony of the National Day of the National People's Army here in Algiers. This year's ceremony was held in honor of the retired army officials, the families of the martyrs, as well as those who were seriously wounded in the fight against terrorism. On his arrival, the President of the Republic was received by Army Chief of Staff Major General Said Changriha. The ceremony was attended by several government and national army officials, and Army Chief of Staff Major General Said Changriha stressed the importance for Algeria and its people to stay committed to preserving the country's unity amid the current regional challenges.
In light of the big security challenges and the rapid and unexpected changes and crises hitting our region, Algeria needs now more than ever before to reinforce determination and commitment and unite the efforts of all its loyal people to deal a blow to any kind of blood that targets its territorial and people's unity.
And the Army Chief of Staff also see the opportunity to hail the decision of President Tebboune to dedicate National Day for the People's Army and for honoring the Army staff and their families. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed his condolences following the forest fires that claimed the lives of many people in Algeria. In a message addressed to President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, Guterres expressed his sympathy with the families of the civilian and military victims and extended condolences to all Algerians. He also expressed the UN unconditional commitment towards the Algerian Democratic Republic during the current difficult period. Guterres expressed that the forest fires ring a bell about climate change, calling for the reinforcement of international efforts to deal with its deep causes. Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf has discussed with the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, the latest developments of the situation in Niger. In a phone call, the two officials exchanged views on the crisis in Niger and the danger of an escalation in Niger on the Sahel region. In this line, Josep Borrell informed the Algerian diplomacy chief of the decisions of the European Union against the perpetrators of the coup in Niger. The two sides also highlighted the importance of political and diplomatic pressure to ensure the return to constitutional order in the Republic of Niger through the reinstallation of Mohamed Bazoum in his position as legitimate president of Niger. For his part, Ahmed Attaf reiterated Algeria's conviction of the necessity to prioritize the political and diplomatic process in Niger, given the repercussions of the use of force on the situation, which may worsen at both local and regional levels. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and still with Niger, uncertainty remained on whether the Economic Community of the West African State, ECOWAS, would recourse to force hours before the expiry of an ultimatum given 1 week to the new authorities to restore the constitutional order in the country. The Army Chief of Staff of the organization's members states met 2 days ago in Abuja to define the outlines of a military intervention in which Senegal said it was ready to participate in. The regional organization meeting on July 30th threatened to use force unless Niger President Mohamed Bazoum was reinstated. And the ECOWAS threat to intervene in Niger to restore the constitutional order was rejected by the new authorities in Niger, who pledged to respond to any attacks. It was also rejected by Niger's neighboring countries, Mali and Burkina Faso, who affirmed that any intervention would be considered a declaration of war. The tense situation prevailing in Niger has forced several European countries, including France and Spain, to speed up the evacuation of their nationals. And in this respect, Italian Defense Ministry said that 65 military personnel had left Niger. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. The Spanish right-wing Podemos party has reiterated its support to the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and to its fight against the plundering by Morocco of its natural resources in violation of international law. The spokesman of the party's international secretariat, Edoya Villanueva, was quoted by the news agency SBS as saying that the fundamental rights of the Sahrawi people continued to be abused by Morocco. It is worth recalling that the far left-wing party already expressed its disagreement on the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's turnabout concerning the Western Sahara issue. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, 14 hours, 49 minutes, Algiers time. The UN envoy to Libya, Abdoulaye Bathily, has held talks with Khalifa Haftar, with whom he reviewed the recent developments and highlighted the urgency of finalizing the electoral laws and agreeing on the political conditions to lead the country to inclusive and peaceful elections. Separately, UN envoy to Libya met with the chairman of Libya's High Council of State, President Khalid Meshri, in Tripoli, where they discussed ways and means to overcome the remaining issues with the legal framework for elections prepared by 6+6 committee. And Bathily reiterated the UN commitment to assist in mediating a political compromise regarding the electoral framework and other contentious issues to enable the country move forward as soon as possible. And the permanent representative of the State of Palestine at UN, Riyad Mansour, has called on the UN and the international community to take action rapidly in order to put an end to the human rights violations, the war crimes, and crimes against humanity perpetrated by Israel in the occupied territories. The letter is sent to the UN Secretary General and the President of the UN Security Council. He listed the number of Palestinians, including children, who are regularly hit by the Israeli army. 14 hours 50 minutes Algiers time. That was the end of our news bulletin. Now the headlines. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has affirmed during an interview with the national media that almost all of his 54 commitments made to the Algerian people before his election had been implemented, pending the fulfillment of the remaining commitments. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed his condolences to the President of the Republic following the forest fires that claimed several lives in Algeria. And in Niger, uncertainty remained on whether the Economic Community for West African State, ECOWAS, would recourse to force hours before the expiry of an ultimatum given 1 week to the new authorities to restore constitutional order in the country. 14 hours 51 minutes Algiers time. That was at the end of our English edition. I invite you now to listen to a cultural program presented by Jamal Salmani.